I'm not sure the signage is backwards here.
Oh no, it's perfect.
Huh?
The sign is perfect.
Does it say is because orientated properly there with
Yes.
you, or
Yeah, it's okay.
it it looks backwards in my view?
That's because when you see a camera, it flips the image.
Okay.
Like to me, this seems backwards, but I know it's on properly since it's all like all that stuff. all,
Okay.
all right. Intro in three, two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jamal Alexander Toussaint, and I'm currently living in Halifax. And welcome to the first episode of Halichats, your local podcast here in the city. The goal of the goal of this podcast project is to just simply talk. There's a lot of interesting people here in the city, who I feel their stories don't get told. Whether it be interesting people that like to fulfill a goal or talk about good food, decent things in the city, I'd like to bring that to the internet and just have nice, fun conversations. Joining me for this first episode of Halichast is this nice gentleman. You might have seen him in downtown Halifax, run around, train for a marathon, sprinting around. He's a very active man. He has a long story to tell and a very great human being. And he also believes in the power of health, self determination, and going after your goals. This gentleman's name is Trevor Redmond. How are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good. No pressure. Your first episode,
No, not even close, bro.
eh?
I'm recording video. I'm using this video from Facebook Marketplace because my editing skills are kind of right now. But yeah. So to start off with, I've been to the city. I've been to the city for about 5 years, and I've seen you in around doing this whole felony and stuff. But to
Sure.
begin, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? Where you were born, what it was like growing up?
Oh well, born in Nova Scotia here. I loved it. Pictou County.
Ooh,
Uh, I actually was a hillbilly for a while,
really?
with the exception. I was born in Lions Brook, Pictou County there, and then became a hillbilly from there. Scotch Hill, Green Hill, Poplar Hill. And
I've
my father used to joke, we lived so far back in the woods up there that we had to come out to hunt. So that was a lot of my life growing up. So a lot of backward nature stuff. It was absolutely great. And, I think the visits to the big city of Halifax were awesome too and eye opening. But most of the time I was quite rural. And a trip to the beach was awesome as well. That was our pastime. So for me, pretty active, pretty great, really, at that in that regard.
You said very rural, huh? Was there like many? Was there like schools, like little things to do, or did you guys have to walk to like long distance to various places, or?
I laugh because you know what? I live so far away from things. We didn't walk anywhere, right? So,
What?
besides in the woods,
What?
so I spent a lot of my time in the woods, running around, leaping over logs and stuff like that, and strolling along brooks. But it was great, and I remember we had some horses. They actually weren't. It didn't belong to us. They were our neighbors' horses, but we treated them like ours.
Oh
And
my
they'd
god!
come over and stuff like that. So, and those nice rides that the neighbors would allow us on, sleigh rides through the wood roads, were like, I mean, just great memories that way. You know,
Oh wow!
yeah, it was great.
You want
Yeah,
actual horses?
was that?
You want actual horses,
I didn't. My
bro?
father did once too, until our dog came barking. He found out that he couldn't ride that horse very long.
Bro,
He was shot off and probably shot about 10 feet in the air.
that's amazing.
But
Um,
that's, we're getting off track.
oh, that's okay. No, that's amazing.
But it's a great, it just was a lot of laughs, and we found our own entertainment. And I think it was a pleasure myself. We, there was no boom boxes out there.
mhm.
Um, we talk about kitchen parties.
Oh yeah.
Like it became famous with COVID, but that was a life to me. Uh, where there would be mandolins, fiddles, guitars, people singing. If you didn't have an instrument, you're grabbing some spoons and you're chattering them away. Um, Nobody had a drum, but the kitchen floor was the bass drum that was going boom, boom, boom as people were stomping. Like, great. You're bringing back great memories, for growing up in Nova Scotia. I thought it was, and especially rural Nova Scotia, we really found our own entertainment.
Oh yeah, I can definitely relate to that because I'm originally from Cape Breton, being in
Yeah,
Whitney Pier, and there was definitely the kids made our own entertainment. I mean, I'm definitely a little like a little bit younger than you, and I could definitely relate to like making our own entertainment. But this is before like I'm from the era when video games were about, so like me and all the boys would play video games, and some of us would
yeah.
be involved with nature, but not too many of us. Not me for sure. I was like, one day I was like trying to walk around different broken stuff, and it fell and scraped me. And I was like crying to my mom, and I was like, I told her I hated this. I want to go back to play video games, and she's like, embrace nature, and I'm like, no, no, thank you.
No,
um,
for me, the outside world leached in now and then as a kid, and my favorite childhood hero from about the age of 6, 7, 8 was Evil Knievel, a daredevil. So in our backyard, we'd be setting up the ramps on bicycles. I would be jumping over my brother and pretending to crash, and he'd be jumping over me and pretending to crash, and now and then we'd crash into each other
oh
just
my
the
god,
same.
oh yeah.
But my upbringing was a little bit risky and daredevil stuff. If that's a segue into what I'm doing in life right now, I guess I'll take it.
That's definitely true. Did you have any? So I remember checking out the CBC article on you, and it said that you had a dream of running across the country. When did that start?
How far back do we really want to go?
Oh, we're.
I was having a conversation with my mother after my journey across Canada,
Mhm,
and she was recalling a time when she got a phone call from my grandmother.
mhm.
Sharon, you gotta be looking after your boy. What's he doing down here with me? From my grandma. She did talk like that, honestly, when she was mad. But here I was, half a kilometer away from my house, down at her house, because I just seen in my eyes, there's my grandmother's house.
Mhm.
I'm gonna walk there. So half a kilometer at the age of 2.
What?
Yeah,
You walked half
yeah.
a kilometer at the age of 2.
I just wanted to see my grandmother. So, when I get something in my eyes on the horizon, I want to reach for it. And I remember those back in those rural areas with my brother years later.
Mhm.
My brother would have been born by then, a couple of years younger than me. Me imagining going across the Swickers farm and pretending I was in the Sahara Desert on a hot, hot summer day, much like what we're facing now,
Mhm.
with the humidity. And I'm like, yeah. So I played as a kid in taking these long, hot journeys. Um, I did like to run. I really did as well.
Mhm.
And we had this event annually at our school during the Johnny Miles Marathon week,
Mhm.
where we would run around the school. I don't know how many laps, I can't remember, but I loved it. Just run, run, run. Uh, when I was 9 years old, there was a fellow running across Canada that I was totally inspired by. He was just running across Canada. And again, being in a rural area where a half hour, 45-minute drive seems like forever.
Mhm.
And this fellow was running it in a day. Just astounded me. And I wasn't able to get to see this fellow. They sent me to school. And
Mhm.
a lot of the folks around our county neighborhood, you could hear some of the older folks say, well, this guy, he's not going to make it, not even to New Brunswick. He's doing this on one leg.
Mhm.
Like, he's going to quit.
Mhm.
But he didn't.
No.
So Terry Fox was an influence. And I did later on take track and field, and my dreams as, 14, 15-year-old kid was, to be in the Olympics, to be in the CFL, not
Oh,
the NFL, the
the
Canadian Football
CFL. I remember
League.
those. The Winnipeg.
And all of that. So I ended up, you know, being in track and field. And at the age of 15, I actually got struck by a car. So anything just to be able to walk again,
Mhm.
to run again, I think that's where the dream really did. If I can, I'm gonna.
Mhm.
Not believing that I could, but it was this goal, this objective to try to reach for, to inspire me to try and try really hard, because in order for you to do something like that, you got to be perfectly fit to be able to do it. So there's the progression. The
Okay.
step that took Trevor to the point where, yeah, a dream of running across Canada.
So back when you were a kid, what was it about? Back 2 points. Point one. What
Yeah,
was it when you were a kid? What was it about Terry Fox that inspired you?
it really just is simple. Like, kids have simple inspiration. You see somebody that's just doing that, and you can't believe it. I mean, you know, I remember with my grandfather, our perspective as a kid is so much bigger. Every time I see him, he gave us $2. It
Oh
was
yeah,
the little red bill, back then.
a bill.
Uh, Bill, yes.
So
There
so
were
no,
little red bills back then.
so not a coin like this, but an actual
Not a
bill.
coin, like
Yo.
an actual $2 bill.
Hmm.
And what would that $2 bill now a days from back then? I bet you it's 15, $20 now.
Oh yeah.
But it seemed a lot anyways. And Grandpa, if you keep doing this, we'll be millionaires. So that's the perspective of a kid.
Hmm.
For a 9-year-old kid hearing, running, and you know how far a kid can run in a day.
Well, you literally ran half a kilometer down to your grandma's house at the age of 2. So I'm not surprised.
Oh, come on. But even at that, we, you put that into perspective. We, as a child, you know how long you can play during the day and run,
Hmm.
but the kilometers are not going to add up to 42 kilometers like Terry Fox. And certainly running across Canada was just boom, just blew my mind. So just as a runner, an inspiration. I do remember going to school, and I do remember the teacher trying to help us navigate in just what cancer was,
Hmm.
because we're 9 years old. Like, what do we know about that? Who do we know
Hmm.
that has cancer? We don't. That's kept from us. So the discussion more was, well, it's like having a flu and not being able to get better, is what the teacher explained to us.
Hmm.
So that was my first intro into cancer itself. Now, a couple of years after that, at 11 years old, I got to see it firsthand out there in rural Poplar Hill.
Hmm.
Our next door neighbor that lived next to the people that had the horses, a fellow by the name Dave Sampson, who had these beautiful, beautiful garden, beautiful ponderosa pine trees, and was so dedicated to that. He ended up getting leukemia.
Ooh.
And we did as a kid get to visit him during it. But there were times our mother just said, no, you just don't want to see it. Didn't want us over there seeing him go through what he was going through.
He
And then
must.
there was a time when he got better, and then a time when, well, he finally succumbed to it. So it strongly resonated in me, around that time, between when Terry Fox ran across Canada and then when, Dave Sampson passed away from it.
Mm.
And then, but nobody in my family had it at that point that I knew of. So I'm like, well, okay, that's them. Until members in my family did get cancer, losing a grandfather, 2 uncles, and an aunt to it. So, yeah.
I've lost an aunt. No, I lost 2 aunts of cancer. Aunt
Mm.
Ida and Aunt Alice, God rest their souls. They were very beautiful women who I interacted and I loved very much.
Mm.
So, all right. So back to the second point. So, your accident. What do you remember the day of the accident and like what happened? Because I read on it and that sounds just whoa.
It's the accident was, and nothing I could do. In a split second, in my stride, I tried to leap, but
Oh, I
I
meant.
literally was between strides. So when my left leg planted,
Mhm. Oh, I
the
meant.
car crashed.
Sorry, I meant like. Do you remember exactly what happened? Like, where were you? What age you were? What exactly the scenario
Oh,
was?
yes.
Okay.
Well, here you go. 15 years old,
Okay.
uh, on a Tuesday, 4:10, raining. I remember that vividly.
Okay.
in front of my house that is located, uh, well, my old house. I don't live there now, but across from the Sobeys warehouse on North 4th Street, Stellarton.
Ooh.
So I vividly remember the accident. Yeah. So, from there to the point where it struck my leg, um, it threw me probably 30 feet, and
30,
I did go through the air.
30
I,
feet.
I watched the treetop spin, then the sky and the ground spin, and then I landed looking at my front doorstep.
Holy frig.
My my Nobody was home at that time either. So they didn't know until neighbors let them know that I was struck. So, yeah, I can't imagine how traumatic that would have been for them. But I'm kind of glad that they actually never see me laying there, and yet later in the hospital would come to visit me, because I can't imagine, to go at your doorstep, there's an ambulance there, and there's your son or brother. But yeah.
That definitely sounds brutal. Were you still conscious?
Yes. Yeah, and I in shock, but conscious. Yeah, I was. Yeah, and
Okay.
that's what I mean. I can remember a lot of it very vividly. Yeah.
Okay. So from the accident, do you remember from going to the remember the aftermath? Do you remember going from the ambulance to the hospital and so on and so forth? If you remember anything about that.
That's where the ambulance rides both to the Aberdeen hospital
Okay.
and from the Aberdeen. They didn't have the proper surgeons to look after me at the Aberdeen, so
Really?
they sent me by ambulance up to Halifax, the Victoria General, and I I remember the sound of the ambulance, and that's pretty much all I remember. And I think the struggle for, and this is something that you do. I took first aid.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was kind of getting pissed off by it. What's your name? Where do you live? What date is it?
You were getting pissed
You
off
know,
at this?
I was, because they kept repeating it, and I kept giving them the same answer. But what I know now is that they were trying to assess my consciousness
Mm-hmm.
level. Uh, but just the same, the only thing I want to hear is, Trevor, we're getting you into surgery. We're going to look after you. And what was really bothering me is I was feeling weaker and weaker and weaker, and feeling like, if these people really don't look after me really soon, I'm not going to be around in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it was scary. And the reason that I was sent to the Victoria General Hospital is they didn't have a vascular surgeon at that time, and they did think, not just from the swelling, that there was a possibility that I had a severed artery.
Oh.
So I was at that point slowly bleeding to death.
Oh God.
So it like a serious injury. Yeah.
So next question is: can you tell me about your experience in the hospital, if you remember any of it?
Well, again, arriving in the Victoria General Hospital, again, that slew of questions trying to see my consciousness, because I couldn't look back at myself, but I can imagine I'd be turning lighter and lighter and lighter in color,
Mm-hmm.
and that probably had them worrying. And that was, also, the risk of even messing around with that. Ooh. But it was my first experience, and it was frightening for me. And I have wit.
Oh yeah.
I have a, I have a saying: if it's heavy, make it light. So I do remember, even in that condition, kind of joking with the doctors, because what was about to happen is I was going to be put under for the first time. My real fear was, am I going to wake up again? And I did. And I'll tell you, the first thing I remember when I did wake up, because I thought, well, maybe I'll be going home in crutches.
Mm-hmm.
I looked down and seen this thing they called a fixator. It was stainless steel rods from the outside stuck into my leg, and strutting across the poles that were going in were other stainless steel rods, just holding everything in place. And I looked down at my leg and said, well, you're not going home. And along with that first thought is you're never going to meet Rick. Now, who Rick Hansen was a fellow who was wheelchairing across Canada at that time, who wheelchaired right around the world. And he was going to wheel down my same street on North Ford Street just 4 days later.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm not going home in 4 days. And I think those are the first questions I asked the doctors. You know, how soon am I going home? Not for a while. So it was tragedy after tragedy on top of disappointment and disappointment. But I was there to fight.
And fight you did. When you decided to fight, what thoughts are going through your head, and how did you decide to implement that?
Well, let me put it this way. I don't think there was a thought about fighting, you know, really. I mean, I did just mention that. But, you know, it's not even about, I'm going to fight or not. You just didn't know. So your entire life goes into the hands of other people, total strangers. And I mean, that was my first thoughts going into that first surgery. They're putting you under, and your life is completely in their hands.
Okay.
If you come out of this or not. So I went through another surgery, and they're telling me you're at risk of losing your leg. But we'll be honest. And that first experience where I looked down and the right side of my left leg was still completely open, an open wound.
You seen it?
I'm sorry?
Did you you could see the insides of your leg and stuff?
So you imagine after the first or second surgery that they go to you, you need to face this, you need to look at it, you need to deal with this. And you don't want to deal with that. You don't want to look at it. And you're talking to your right leg to tell the left leg, please heal exactly like you. So you're sending out those signals, that mental imagery. I don't want it to look like this. And they force you to look at it. And it's horrific. You know, that open wound stayed open for a year and a half. And I was the one doing the dressing changes, putting putty in that was the color of the shirt because of the iodine content. And that was keeping my leg, and that was keeping me alive for a year and a half.
Did the nurses do any changes or no?
They did. And through the hospital they did. When I went home to the Aberdeen, they did as well. These visits. But the visits were back and forth. And even for quite some time, my mother did the dressing changes until at one point I decided to take over. And because this was a heavy burden on the family. It was. And I really didn't want to be a burden. So that time in the hospital and after, tough. But, and there was, you want to resign to what the doctors are telling you because you're looking at it. You know, they're building things. At one point, my toes were starting to curl down.
Okay.
So putting me into a crippling way like this. So they actually built something to prop up the toes.
Okay.
I remember them specifically, you know, just to keep them like that so they wouldn't curl under. And they still got a slight curl to them, but totally functional. And sometimes when I run, I have a little issues with the toenail issue, but you know, I can handle it. But you know, having you specially treat me like that. And there was times I'm thinking I'm going to resign to the fact that I will be at the best using a cane for the rest of my life.
Okay.
And resign to the fact that I maybe will lose my leg. So after about the second, third surgery I went through, I waking up from the surgery, I'm like, well, what if I do lose my leg? Look, there's nobody in school that I know that have that kind of disability. I will be alone. Who do I talk to? Who do I have to navigate? I'm like, well, Trevor, think about Terry Fox. Look how he did. And Trevor, it could have been worse. I said I landed on my left leg. It could have been the right leg. It could have been from behind, or whatever way, that split second.
Mm-hmm.
I could have lost the use of both legs. I could have lost the use of both arms and legs. I could have lost my life. So from there was really a starting point to, we're going to give it everything. And in those thoughts as well was, well, your parents don't make a lot of money. If it wasn't for the healthcare system, would you have received this kind of treatment? And I very much think that without our healthcare system, I wouldn't have a leg. And so a lot of these thoughts, this responsibility, this gift I was given, I don't know if I put words together to say how grateful I am for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't. Often I don't put words together. I just display it. So if somebody sees me right on the spot or running down the street, I'm grateful. I might not be moving from a position. I may be just going like this.
Mm-hmm.
But believe me, I'm running these big victory laps after what I went through.
That's amazing. So I was reading your website, and that's a really awesome, amazing website, by the way. Can you tell me what are some components of health that your website talks about, and what are the 3 aspects of health that you like to preach about?
I well, as going to school, I guess this might be where it comes from. I always scored high in abstract reasoning.
What does that mean?
But well, they put these forms in front of you, and okay, now make a decision on this, make a decision on that. These equivalent tests that they used to give us, and I always scored high in them. But in that, just the structure of things, the strongest structure that we know, and we know this just by looking in Egypt, that pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it this way. So if you've seen what I'm doing this for is health, mobility, recovery. Health, mobility, recovery. Well,
Okay.
recovery is resting sometimes.
Okay.
Recovery is also moving. So, and what am I moving? Well, I want to move the mind, the body. So the mind, the body, and this mind, body, spirit.
Okay.
So in that, to keep that healthy and moving, the simple aspect of, well, again, exercise, good food, and good rest. And these make really good triangles. So I put things in the simplest form because it is that simple. Finding a way to exercise your mind, your body, your spirit. So when I do talk about exercise, it's not just the physical body, but boy, that physical exercise can exercise the mind, the body, and the spirit.
Really?
Then again, your spirit can exercise all those. And then when you put things into your mind, it'll exercise those as well. And I was just thinking the other day, it's not just a triangle. It's a circle around the triangle where you repeat. And that really keeps things moving for you and keeps you healthy. Is that what you're looking for?
Oh, there's gonna be more than that because now you mentioned a triple triangle and a circle. Yo, this is deep. This is interesting. So when you mention the mind in terms of health, like I'm growing up and I've seen like people like going through mental illness and going through stresses and stuff to like damage the spirit. But in terms of mind, I'm interested in definitely hearing your thoughts in terms of like how does the mind affect health? The way I see it, like for example, during your accident, you probably could have just been like everything went to crap. You didn't care about nothing like this. You're like, why am I still here? But your mind is what got you through.
Look, I will tell you, sometimes it's just a word, just a single word. And I'll give you a word a coach said to me because, look, for your dirty minds out there, we're going to play a little Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, God.
And it's the dirtiest word that there is out there.
Can I buy a vowel? Can I buy a vowel?
Okay, I'll let you. Well, consonants first. But it is the greatest curse word. But I'll tell you, I said it to a coach as I was taking gymnastics. And I really couldn't leap around a lot and stuff like that. So I really didn't feel secure because I couldn't spring with that leg over the springboard. And I turned to the people that were taking it with me. And I told them that curse word, but I didn't know it was a curse word. And the coach goes, "I will not have this in my gym. You cannot say that curse word in my gym." And I'm like, "I didn't curse."
Okay.
So I'll start you off with a consonant. The 4-letter word starts with C.
Can't?
Now the third word, what's that?
Can't?
That's the word. And it is a curse word. If you say it to yourself, you've cursed yourself. If you say it to others, you've cursed them. And I was told by doctors, you can't have a labor job. Stay away from stairs. Stay away from hills. You know? But I was a physical person. You know, you're really cursing me by saying that.
Really?
So sometimes just putting one single word in your mind and focusing on that, I can. This because is short for because I can. And I said that when I got over the Coquihalla Highway, when for the first time, this is your first podcast, the first time I had a big national news camera in front of me. The lens was this big and my face was distorted in it.
Oh, I'm familiar with those cameras.
And he asked me, "Well, why are you doing this?" I'll say, "Well, I got 1,001 reasons." He says, "Well, you can't name 1,001 reason. Name 1, name 5, name 7. The camera's rolling." I said, "Well, if I have to give you a reason, the reason is because it can, when others may not find the ability to do so." And to me, when people ask me why, it's still the best answer. You know, if we find that we can, we should do. Those that do, those that don't won't. And it's as simple as that. And put that in your mind and go with it. You know, run with it, walk with it, crawl with it, leap with it, jump with it, fly with it. But put it there because you can.
Okay, that's amazing. Your second part talked about physical movement. We all know the benefits of physical movements because I definitely started working out at home and getting some physical exercise. But what is it about it that exactly that you preach in terms of like movement?
I'm sorry?
What is it about movement that you decide to preach about? What is it about movement that is also the second part of trying to go of health?
Health, mobility, recovery. You know, movement creates memories. It creates experiences. It teaches. Movement will even teach you right down to your DNA, right down to your epigenetics.
Really?
Where you move yourself, you're not just moving yourself, you're moving generations after generations after generations after generations. You know,
so if I were to,
it's so important.
So if I were to just so let's say for example I don't get up much, and a little bit of exercise, all I do for the day is just rotate my arm around this.
Look, you're already exercising.
Even something.
You're doing something you normally wouldn't do sometimes, and sometimes that's part of exercise too. Going outside of your norms, going outside of your comfort zone. There's a trend right now for years, and you'll see it. Why are people near an ice over lake in a sauna, where they sit in the sauna for a half hour and then they run out, they jump in the ice.
Jump in ice cold water? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And why are they doing that? You know, that's an exercise. You're actually training your body in strange ways to be able to take extremes. And that's what I'm finding out and still discovering. Even just this year, I took, grade 11, 12 biology in high school. And they taught us what our organs are. You know, your stomach, your lungs, your heart. Your heart's kind of an organ and a muscle, but muscles aren't organs. They're separate. But what scientists are really starting to discover is a word called myokines.
Okay.
And they are, as it jumped in my head, microproteins, but they sort of are. They're a small chain of proteins that line up, but they're signal proteins. So if you're looking at a factory, if anybody's worked in one or a warehouse or something, especially in the old days, those tubes that you put paper information in, and you put it in this tube, you hit a button, and this thing flies off half a kilometer
Mm-hmm.
into the shipping office where I used to go. And when you exercise your muscles, you're causing those signals to move all around your body. These small little signal proteins that are saying, okay, we need to do this now to survive. Even in the heat today. Now that's why, and you'll notice this, on those really cold days when it warms up to -5, you're like, oh, it's nice out. But my Lord, if it went to -5 right now, we'd all be going, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
And in reverse, and vice versa, it's the same thing, because we start to produce proteins that can help us handle the heat better, as well as proteins that can help us handle the cold better. And your muscles and moving also produce little proteins to send signals. It's wonderful. Like, moving is medicine. And I mean, for me, it's so important knowing this. And why the scientists really want to know this is that, of course, they want to synthetically produce these so they can put it in a pill.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have to do that. We just have to go out and exercise ourselves, and we're going to produce it. And I mean, these things, exercise can reduce the odds of getting cancer, diabetes, and an array of other issues.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, it helps you along when you have these exercise issues. And of course, like myself, where you're really badly injured or badly ill, you want to exercise to get healthy again in the recovery process. So that kind of mobility is very important. And the only way to signal the body to really work like a factory is getting those muscles moving. And I say this, every time you exercise like that, you're asking your inner mechanics for an upgrade.
Oh,
So
wow.
think about that. No, you really are. Like, he's fit, he's healthy, he's had that experience. Look, prior to my walk across Canada, I had an issue with my ear. I was on a monthly basis going in and getting Ventolin put into my lungs so I could breathe. Puffers.
Okay.
Things that sprayed up my nose. An EpiPen that I would put in my leg. If I had to have those with me, or my life was threatened.
Really?
5 years after my journey across Canada, I'm sitting in a first aid, taking first aid, and they come up with this basket. And in the basket, they had the puffers, the injectors, the inhalers, to keep me alive. And for, the previous 5 years, I didn't use any one of them.
Really?
No. Previous to my walk across Canada, and the training of my walk across Canada, I was even getting better as I was training. I don't, this is what I say, like my cane, my crutches in the wheelchair, I don't know what day I left those behind. And when you become an adult, they say for allergies, it's harder for you to lose them. I don't know the date of when I left those puffers, injectors, inhalers behind. And I don't have symptoms of allergies.
Okay.
So on my walk across Canada, I had a theme. Every step that's taken is a step towards a cure. I didn't realize I'd be curing myself, from allergies, and potentially life-threatening allergies. I mean, I did hit the emergency at one point.
You cured yourself from allergies?
3 hours with a heart monitor. Oh yeah, my eyes started swelling up. My in here was swelling. I went in as a mess. All I did was I was biking in early March and I rubbed my eye. And that was it. I barely made it to work. I had to go up a hill and a few blocks away. By the time I got there, they're like, "Oh, Trevor, you don't look good. Eyes swollen out," and they rushed me down to the hospital. So, yeah. It means a lot. Exercise does. Like, I mean, here I am, 52, and I can't believe I've come this far.
That's amazing.
Getting ready to Yeah.
The last part you mentioned recovery. What kind of part does that play as well?
Recovery. Yeah. Well, I did mention first aid, and we were told the RICE principle: rest, ice, circulate, elevate.
Mm-hmm.
That's the acronym. One of the last first aid that I took, they were talking about something that was a little bit better. They want to really try to get that rest part out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I say we heal as we move. So you
Okay.
got to think about that in recovery.
Okay.
If you want to heal broken and laying down, then lay down broken and just wait to heal. You're going to heal exactly the way you told your body to heal. But if you want to be up and moving and active after your injury, then you want to move as soon as you can. Now, the police principle is protect, optimum load.
Mm-hmm.
So protect, optimum load replaces the R, the rest. So protect it. Make sure you're not doing any more injury.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're through that, then use optimum load. Ice, circulate, elevate. Yeah. I think I put an extra finger in there, but maybe not. No, that's right. um, so that is it. So recovery is long. It's a long road. People ask me, how long did it take for me to recover? Well, for me, I say still am. I still am recovering, but what a recovery. And when you have such a severe injury, you have to do that. It's a lifetime dedication to keeping yourself moving, or your body will not use what it doesn't need to use. So if I'm putting emphasis on my right leg and not putting emphasis on my left, my body will give up on the left. And I mean, even consciously to today, if I go for groceries,
Mm-hmm.
the heaviest groceries always go to the left,
Really?
where my legs the weakest. If I'm climbing stairs, often I'll go one stair at a time with the right and two stairs at a time with the left, just to emphasize, to say to the body, I don't just need this leg. I need it even more than the right.
Okay.
Now, and look how far I've come on a good leg. And look how far I've come on a better leg.
Mm. Oh.
So it's putting that attitude to it. Recovery is a long road, and for some, it's a lifetime dedication of, well, just keeping things moving.
Okay. So you mentioned that you did go across Canada, and we'll get to that shortly. But I'm more curious. I'm more interested to hear about your training, because I did take a little bit of, like, I used to compete in like little stuff myself. I like in elementary school, I used to do like small track and field, like run stuff, and I would just like practice by running around gym stuff. It wasn't really my thing, but I'd like to learn more about. Okay, take your time.
Don't keep going. I know what you'll. Keep going.
Okay. I'd like to hear more about what exactly kind of training that would involve for a thing like that.
Okay. For my walking,
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a
as
ball.
you
Okay.
can see,
Yo.
um, I had to come up with a concept. I needed to be injury-free
Mm-hmm.
because, especially with, I had a bad back, bad leg, bad shoulder, going into my walk across Canada. Like, Trevor, what are you doing? Like, you're probably going to be halfway across Canada having to go down on your knees and crawl the rest of the way. But let's not think about that. Let's think about the training. So, like a sailboat, I needed to be. I consider myself, I guess that's my experience growing up in the Maritimes,
Mm-hmm.
seeing sailboats. You have a mast,
Mm-hmm.
you have these, well, I don't know what they call them, they stick out from the mast that you hang the sails on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's my mast here. Well, right here,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm hanging the sails on. That's where I hang my muscles from.
Okay.
So, considering that, that's the way I had to exercise. But the mast had to be the strongest.
Okay.
That's why I brought this out.
Okay.
So I would be sometimes elevating, moving slowly from these little exercises, getting those sails ready. to getting the cells, the ligaments, the joints, the tendons, everything working together. Putting my toes on top of this and doing push-ups. Laying on my back with my heels on here, curling.
Mm-hmm.
Any exercise that I could possibly find off of this, because this, well, I'll put that down.
Okay.
The sales are okay. I just, tired of looking at a pink ball. But anything to get that core strong and stabilized, because the back goes, everything goes. And keeping from the tips of your fingers to the tips of your toes working together as well, together strongly. And one of the things I did stop doing was going to the gym.
You stopped going to the gym?
On the most part, I did for certain things. On my left leg, I would focus on the quadriceps and the hamstrings and that kind of things, as well as really, because the machines that they had there could exercise that just a little bit more, which I needed that emphasis. But otherwise, because most people, what they'll want to do when they go to the gym is, I want big biceps. So they focus on the biceps.
Oh yeah,
So
everyone's trying to get jacked a bit.
Look at this. Yeah. But they sometimes neglect the triceps. Me, myself, I used to like to work the triceps, but I'm neglecting the biceps. Now think of yourself on a sailboat. One side, you got this guy that's 16 years old. His voice is still cracking. And you got this guy that's been on this ship for 30 years. Now you got one guy with big old biceps pulling on this side, and then this little fellow with little triceps pulling on this side. What's going to happen to that sailboat? You're going to rip a sail, bust the mast. Something's going to happen. So you needed that equilibrium. So I was really using my own body weight as the weight on, say, the exercise ball in order to do that, so that I would be fit like that. And on this exercise ball, I would elevate. Oh, boy, it's a big ball. I would put my hands on here, and I would do push-ups, but the ball would be shaking like this, back and forth, because my legs would be elevated on a couch or a chair. And that was preparing me to pull the heavy weight that had to pull along shoulders off the gravel, going like this from side to side. I will say I went across Canada virtually injury-free.
Oh, wow.
Which was incredible. Not mentioning the fact that I was doing it on an injured leg.
Man, the next.
But I kept it together, and it's that's the exercise in the mind prior to going out and doing it, and of course the spirit to say, hey, you know what? Let's see what's possible, and wow, you come up with your own exercises. And if my exercises won't be other people's exercise, I can help them out that way.
Okay.
But it's finding your own exercise. And this goes back to the fellow in yellow, me running on the spot. Initially, it's a message to say, in whatever position you are in, wherever you are, you can do something. Even if you don't have to leave that position, you can exercise a little bit or a lot. Now, for me, I took here in Halifax 108,000 steps in one day. That was the biggest day. That's a lot.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll definitely come back to Halifax and Fellow in Yellow for a bit. So the first time you went across Canada, can you tell me the year that happened, and if there's any people that stood out that you met, and what was your reaction to it?
2006 March 26, my birthday. I just turned 35.
Oh, wow.
And that was a message in itself. And I was shy. I didn't even let the media know, because it was still that I trained. I did a lot of that around Calgary. I even walked 48, I think maybe my highest kilometer I traveled around the city of Calgary where I lived at that time. 52 kilometers I think I maxed out at. So I knew I could do kilometers, but day after day after day after day on the road, I didn't know. So I was really shy to even let the media know.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I didn't want to disappoint anybody, and I guess I really just yeah. It seems crazy and ridiculous, but it just shows you how really shy and timid I really was about the whole thing. Um, as I said earlier, with a camera in my face, you can't imagine that's the first time that happened, and you know, but you want to talk about an exercise, oh man, of doing things that you never done before. Wow. But it was nice when a lady in a pickup truck, a couple of days outside of Vancouver, brings me an iced tea. And then towards dark, as I'm trying to reach a campground.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, get this for motivation to keep moving. A mother and her daughter
Mm-hmm.
I think a pickup truck again. They pull over to the side of the road and they say to me, "We made a care package for you." I never met these people before in my life. You made a
Okay.
care package for me? And then it was, oh, I think it was a cheese sandwich, some yogurt, a banana, a little juice box, oh, a few other items. But they went home and they put that together after seeing me. And then they brought it back.
Mm-hmm.
They put something together considering me. And I thought that was the most special thing. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the website too, and I'm
yeah.
just seeing letters of all these people and all these photos and stuff. Like it's really impressive,
I,
and I
I
love
like the
it.
one about the lady thinking she got excited because she's seen a wagon going up along the shoulder of the road.
Yeah, I seen the
And on the
wagon.
website, you're gonna see this big thing that I built, this trailer. And along with my shyness was a huge amount of ignorance. And today I call the trailer full of ignorance because I
Really
didn't know what I needed.
full of ignorance,
So
huh?
yeah, because I knew I needed this, and I needed that, and I needed the other thing, and I thought I needed this, and I thought I needed that, and I thought I needed the other thing. And if I thought I needed one thing, then no, I knew I needed a redundancy in case that thing didn't work. Then I need something, and it was just a crazy mess. But here I'm pulling my trailer full of ignorance somewhere between Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury, I believe, and it was going up a hill, and this lady thought it was a horse pulling it, so that got her attention.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a funny little letter there where she's seeing that looks down to look for horse hooves, and she ends up seeing 2 feet moving like this, trying desperately to move up this hill.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great to look back on some of those letters and actually see and they do spark a lot of great memories. Yeah.
That's really awesome. And not only you did it once with the trailer, you did it again.
What you talking about?
You went across Canada twice.
Yeah. Well, I walked across Canada completely. Well, people in Victoria may not say that. I'll have to talk to them when I go out there next year.
Okay.
But I did from Vancouver to Halifax, across Newfoundland, and halfway back. And I'll tell you, I was intending to do 26 kilometers a day,
Mm-hmm.
which I basically did average on the journey going across Canada. Because I was afraid of that 42 kilometers, which was 26 miles. I said, well, let's not do 26 miles, but let's do 26 kilometers. So I'm like, because I think I can handle that. By the time I got across Newfoundland, I was averaging 45 kilometers a day.
Oh wow.
And I crossed Newfoundland in 22 days. It was thereabouts. I had to take 2 days off for weather
Mm-hmm.
events. Um, by the time I got in between Kingston and Belleville, well, between Kingston and Belleville, I did 74 kilometers. So, boy, those myokines were really working for me then, building the body bigger and stronger even as I went. Like, my impression, and this is where I have a problem with belief,
Okay.
because I believed I could walk across Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I believed I would fail. And I even said to you earlier, I believed at probably one point I'd have to crawl.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I could ever believe that I could go from 26 kilometers to 74 kilometers. And that the day before that 74 kilometers, I went 50 kilometers. The day after that 74 kilometers, I think it was 33 kilometers. And then after that, I was back up into the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing. Yeah.
That's impressive. So like I mentioned, I'm looking at this website and it's very inspiring. In the quote section, you mentioned that your father had said he would go to the ends of earth to help a person, and then after injury, you put his words into perspective.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that?
Well, let's see if I don't tear up on this because well, he did say that to me, and I go to, he goes, I'll go there and back to help that person. I'm like, well, where's that, Dad? Well, as far as you can go. Well, where's that, Dad? Well, as far as you can go. Well, where's that? Well, to the ends of the earth and back. And yeah, he did talk like that. And when I was considering doing a walk across Canada, I really did want to move as many people as possibly could. And I said, well, maybe I need to go to the ends of the earth and back myself to help. And maybe I will go there and back. For me, there was a walk across Canada. There was again a bicycle across Canada. And there I'll be next year running across Canada. I really do want to go to the ends of the earth and back to help people. And, I do think about my surgery. As I said, I went through 11 or 12 of them. Not all of them were overseen by a fellow by the name of Patrick McDermott, but the most important ones were. He was an orthopedic surgeon at the Victoria General Hospital. Now, along with the healthcare investment in me that, the Nova Scotia government made back then, was the investment Patrick McDermott made in me. I think most of the other doctors might have just gave up on my leg.
Really?
In fact, it probably would have been the case. Along with a severed artery, shattered in 20 different places. It was at risk. But he made the investment. And you've heard about tough love?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody in my entire life ever gave me such significant tough love. And when we think about there and back, to me, I think about Patrick McDermott. Even at one point, he came back from Newfoundland on a vacation trip with his family so that he could sign off on documents to make sure that I could have this surgery. Who does that? But I remember rolling, and when I talked about just resigning to the fact that here's my life and here's what it's going to be. He's seen it. I'm wheeling out of my hospital bed or from it. And outside of the room, people were there standing near the nurse's desk, the head nurse probably, and him and Patrick himself. And I go wheeling by them, not paying attention. But he was. Where are you heading? I'm going to the TV room. Where's your crutches? They're in on my bed. Get up off your ass. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. I didn't put your leg back together for you to be wheeling back and forth, complaining to the nurses. Get in there, get on them, and get at it. So, and his tone was not as nice as mine, and quite startled me. And I'm thinking to myself, geez, don't you know what I'm going through? My Lord, I almost lost my life here. Look at my leg. This is hard for me, is what I'm thinking in my head. But I'm not about to say that because I don't want to instigate him anymore.
That's
the nurse scurries in and grabs the crutches, and she comes out and gently coaxes. And I go, well, when I tried it, but when I stand on it, my foot turns purple. And he goes, well, it's going to do that. I need you on it so that we can get the blood supply moving again. You have to do this in order to get the blood vessels to regrow and get that blood circulating. I need you on them. You're telling nurses you want to be out of here by Halloween. I'm like, well, yeah. Well, it's not going to happen. You've had a severe injury. So we talked a little bit more. He got to my age level, started, I remember this, acting more like a teenager to try to come to my level. He brought me to his. So somewhere between where he was and where I was, we were.
Okay.
And he said, if you can do what I say, and you keep at it, I'll see what I can do to get you out of here by Halloween.
Okay.
I got out of there by Halloween. 2 months later, Pastor McDermott passed away. I didn't know where his anger was coming from at that point. I didn't know, the nurse would have. I didn't. But he was really pushing as me, the last patient, potentially, to do all he could do. Well, he still remained. And you can imagine him coming back from Newfoundland to make sure that I get the proper surgeries, when he could be spending time with his family, like a very dedicated doctor. So it means a lot to me. When we talk about recovery as well, other doctors that went out of their way, we have a problem. It's getting better. I'm seeing some encouraging news from our local Nova Scotia government in waiting for surgeries. Certainly a reduction in the time we wait. But a year after that, doctors took a look at my leg, and it still wasn't healed over. And they said, well, it should have been doing better by now. And he leaves. 20 minutes later, he comes back. I talked to another surgeon that's working the same time I am. And this is what I want you to do. In 2 weeks, come down to emergency at 3:00 in the afternoon and tell them you're having an issue with your leg. And you talked to me earlier, and I said, we need to rush you down as soon as you can and get surgery to you. This is how he circumnavigated the wait time. So in 2 weeks, I had surgery when I might have had to wait half a year. So you can imagine at the age of 16, you're waiting and waiting and waiting for your life to get going again. This guy kickstarted it, another surgeon. So there are some people that will go there and back for you. And me knowing that, I have a responsibility to, do in kind, really, and try to do as much as I can as well. Maybe get these wait times down, because as I said to you earlier, we heal as we move. And if we can't even get the surgeries we need, how the hell are we supposed to heal?
That's true.
And on top of that, while we're laying down waiting for those surgeries, other illnesses are sneaking in. So it's illness after illness after illness.
Really?
For a person's entire life. I'll give you some stats here from the World Health Organization. I looked them up myself.
Okay.
Both of these statistics. In a 2-year period during COVID, 6 million people died. In that same period, 6.4 million people died. And you know of what? Physical inactivity.
Yes.
So not being able to move and not being able to get the surgery we need, people are forced to be inactive. We need to move people.
That's amazing. So tell us
I
more.
am long-winded.
Oh no, man. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. So where have you traveled, and what were some of the people like that you've seen? Like, I know you traveled all across Canada, but because I've personally myself, I've left Nova Scotia once to go to not Newfoundland. Went to PEI one time, then went to Atlanta, but I've never really traveled across Canada. I'm curious to know what different types of people are like outside different provinces of Canada.
I'm going to try. I'll try to make this shorter, but
okay. Oh no, go nuts, bro.
But we can go long, as long as you want. I don't talk all night. But I'll say this, again, shy, nervous, but yet bold and driven. Really. I picked a route, and my route was the number 7, the Lougheed Highway, coming out of Vancouver. But that Lougheed goes down East Hastings. I don't know what East Hastings is. So I arrive in East Hastings, heading towards the street. Well, what's your route? Oh, well, I'm heading down here. Well, okay. I'm going to go to Lougheed. Well, are you going to go down East Hastings? I'm like, yeah. Well, you don't want to go down there. Nothing but homeless people, druggies, the whole street's shut down. There's nothing there. I'm like, oh, then I definitely want to go down there because I want to reach everybody, and it was amazing. Somebody moving like that that's going to go across Canada and try to accomplish something. Some of the comments from those local, homeless people and beggars and blah, 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 attitude, they were just so real and so awesome. So it was an initial really good experience. Plus, I did want to reach as many people again as I could. With Rick Hansen wheelchairing around the world when I was in the hospital, or even just coming through my community, going past my front door, how special that was and how included I felt. How could I exclude, go around something when it's on my route? No. And I found that out a little bit later, as I didn't take the most direct route across Canada when I was walking. I didn't go like most people do. Let's go up to Kamloops and then go straight out to Calgary and go straight across Canada. I went from Kamloops up the North Thompson River Valley. Now, I've been pretty much an independent person my whole life. I feel comfortable about being independent. And I guess it is just maybe back to the fact, I think as I talked about earlier, I don't like burdening people. I like to take things on myself, if I can take it on myself. So I felt really uncomfortable with what was happening when I went up the North Thompson River Valley. I went into a service station to get, probably something to drink, maybe a milk. I do believe it had an ice cream. And then somebody said, I got that. I get up to have breakfast in the morning. A local lady that had a campground, it's too bad you never went a little bit further. We had a campground here. I would have put you up for the night free. But it's on the way. It's just up the road. Would you like to have breakfast? I had breakfast. I go a little bit further down the road. Oh, my Lord. I think even in Barrie. It's Barrier, sorry. I went in to a grocery store, and I think somebody paid for my groceries there. Along with the news media, follow me almost in every town up there. Going to a Subway, a young lady, she was a teenager, and she bought me Subway at the Sub when I went in. Clearwater, groceries were bought.
That's amazing.
I finally stopped at a Dairy Queen, and there wasn't a lot of Dairy Queen. In the city of Calgary, Dairy Queen was just a block or two away.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I do like my ice cream. In fact, it helped fuel both of those journeys a lot.
You got a favorite flavor?
When we're talking about ice cream, I do like cherry with the cherries in them. But dark chocolate is also really good. And then when we combine something like a Black Forest with cherries in there, absolutely the best.
I'm personally, sorry. I was gonna say, in terms of ice cream, I'm personally a chocolate chip cookie dough my lover. Oh my god, give me that nice vanilla ice cream to the cookie dough bits. I'm gonna eat that up, boy.
Oh, Georgia, was it Georgia fudge? What do they call those? Frosty? What do they have them at Dairy Queen? Is it Frosties? Can't remember. What do they call it? No. That's Wendy's.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Sorry, leaving my mind.
That's okay.
But anyways, back to the Dairy Queen. I'm in there. Okay, that will be $9. So I look left, look right, and I'm like, man, from Kamloops to Clearwater. Now, to give you an idea of the distance, because you might not know where Clearwater is, anybody listening here. Vancouver to Kamloops is about the same distance as Kamloops to Clearwater. So I'll give you some perspective.
Okay.
So from Kamloops to Clearwater, everyone paid for everything. I had no independence. So I'm like, I can finally do this because here I am in the Dairy Queen. And she's saying $9, and I'm reaching into my wallet. And all of a sudden I hear a voice, no, I got that. I'm like, seriously? And do you mind if I do an interview with you? And I'm like, okay. So an interview, from there, a couple of days later, another interview, and the person that interviewed me lined me up at the Comfort Inn in Blue River. So I went up that entire North Thompson River Valley with absolutely everything looked after. So that was great. Because, when you're talking about me never going across Canada before as a new experience, I don't know if they have that much experience through the North Thompson River Valley of people actually crossing Canada and including them. So And that was part of it, how I felt included by what Rick Hansen was doing and those autographs and everything else. When Rick Hansen went right past my doorstep, I wanted to give that to as many people as I possibly can as I was going across Canada, varying my routes. And it did. I appreciate it. They appreciate it. And it wasn't too far outside of Edmonton. I came up with another theme, and still my greatest theme of my movement. The more we move others. Mm-hmm. And, I also have this little saying. It's a simple one: not without.
What do you mean by that?
Not without that support would I be here talking to you today. All of that support I was talking about. As a kid, through the hospital, those people through the North Thompson River Valley, mm-hmm. even those people on East Hastings that gave me encouragement, not without. I got a little bit more poetic when I got across the prairies, and I did already go through BC, all those mountains. And I'll tell you this, the biggest mountains in Canada are on the prairies. It's facing wind in your face all day, unrelenting. That is the biggest mountain to climb. But I say this, the land bent and folded me like in the makings of a sword, and the people I met gave me the materials to withstand the impact.
That's really amazing. I read some of those quotes. Those are really amazing.
Well, when you're out on the road so much and you travel so much even before that, through the roads of life, well, you become a road scholar, ROAD, and that also goes into the fellow in yellow. I am a fellow road scholar.
Mm-hmm. So how did fellow in yellow came to be? How did you decide to brand yourself like that? And yeah, I'm just curious more about that.
I will never meet Rick. That's how it came about. Laying in a hospital bed after the first surgery, I'll never meet Rick, because that would be my expectations. I walked across Canada, I biked across Canada. 2011 was the 25th anniversary of my accident. What did that make it? The 25th anniversary of Rick Hansen wheelchairing around the world. Mm-hmm. And I was following the Rick Hansen Foundation on Facebook. And all of a sudden there's a post. Rick Hansen 25th anniversary relay. I'm like, oh, this can't be happening. They put a contest up for difference makers all across Canada. And what's a difference maker? Anybody that makes a difference in their community. So the contest was, what did you do in your community? Would you like to take part in 500 meters? Oh, yeah, wow. I literally just put the two together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 500 meters down to my grandmother's house, 500 meters to run in this relay. I said, wow. So I was living in Calgary. I'm like, well, I wonder if they'd be upset and if I was to fill out the application for this contest for North Ford Street. And I did. And I was accepted. Mm-hmm. And I hopped on an airplane. And I flew all the way from Calgary to North Ford Street, there in Stellarton, here in Nova Scotia, to take part in what I wanted to do 25 years earlier. And that was to follow Rick as far as he was going to go that day. And that was my intention. I was going to skip school at the age of 15 and go as far as he went. And I was going to do that on a bicycle. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. At the end of I'll tell you, it was amazing to go past that house. And I seen in the big picture window in the front, a family standing, looking out at me going by. And, what a long ways I came from that house to where I was. Mm-hmm. And fulfilling that dream of following Rick Hansen. Wow. And at the end of it, because I was so focused on my nephews and nieces getting autographs and meeting him, I kind of neglected myself in actually engaging with them, which was fine. I walked off. My nephew beside me, he had his camera that he was looking through, and reflecting on all the photos that he took of the day and the memories that he had in his hand. And me, I was just reflecting on all the memories I had, including some of the memories I was speaking to you about, and just how far I came and how amazing that was. Like, wow, a dream come true. And then my nephew goes to me, Trevor, look. And he looks behind. I look over my shoulder, and probably further than 30 meters away, a fellow in a wheelchair going as fast as he can, trying to catch up to us. And he comes up, and my nephew just fumbled enough to get a fresh battery into his camera and took a photo. Just before a man named Rick said this to me, "You've come pretty far yourself." Not as far as you, Rick. In order for me to go as far as you with the kilometers I've already done, I'd have to run across Canada and back. He said to me, "You can do it." So I walked away from Rick Hansen.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, I do like this yellow jacket. It really stands out, and it would stand out on the highway. It stood out amongst everybody. I recognized that, and it was part of, I think, why they went with yellow. Initially, they were going with blue, but they chose the yellow jackets. Nike supplied. And I said, well, if I do that, maybe I should wear some yellow pants too, because I would really stand out. I said, well, if I do that, then maybe I should call myself the fellow in yellow. And that's where that originated from.
That's awesome. So you got to be your hero after all.
Can you imagine that? And it wasn't just once. Later on, when he went through Calgary, I met him again. And I said to him one of my quotes. And it was written, I think, primarily thinking about how Rick Hansen impacted my life. If you reach a child that can remember, you'll have an adult that won't forget. And he said to me, I like that. You know, even in 2017, with the Rick Hansen Foundation, I was invited to meet pardon me. I've done pretty good up till now.
It's all good, homie.
But I met the mayor of Calgary with Rick Hansen, and I got to spend most of the day with Rick Hansen and actually get to listen to him wheel around on stage, giving a motivational talk. And I can be a pretty good motivational speaker myself, and I was critiquing all of the other ones, all the other or the other speakers that were up on stage. I'm like, I could have said that better. Oh, they might have wanted to say this better. Went up on stage and with Rick Hansen up there, I went, wow, I don't know if I'll ever be that good. At speaking. Just an amazing fellow, and still, like, I don't know if I should ask you your age, but
33.
What is it?
33.
And you know who Rick Hansen is?
Yes, I'm vaguely familiar. See, I grew up.
Yes.
I heard about Rick Hansen, the Wheels of Motion, and that he wheeled across Canada, but my knowledge is not as keen as yours is.
Well, anybody I've found under the age of 35 now, on the East Coast, really don't know who Rick Hansen is if I ever mention him. And then anybody over that age go, well, of course. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I will say this, and I realize this because there was a point when we talk about heroes. For me, Johnny Miles, my coach Tony, mm-hmm. Who else? Patrick McDermott, Terry Fox, Steve Fonio, Rick Hansen. Mm-hmm. They're heroes. Now, there was a point in 2017 I had the opportunity as an ambassador for the Rick Hansen Foundation to go in and talk to teens, middle school teens. That gets you nervous enough because, they can hit you in any direction. They're very smart and they'll speak their minds. But here it was going on behalf of the Rick Hansen Foundation to Terry Fox Junior High School. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, oh boy, this is going to be a tough one. And I studied that PowerPoint very hard, just going over it and over it and over it again to try to get those points. And about 2 sentences in, 2 sentences after that, And for an hour and a half, the kids are like, yes, I'm like, I got these kids. This is awesome. And then there was a point where they just started to talk amongst themselves. And I'm like, well, what? I guess I'll have to wrap this up. They're losing interest. And after the talk, I walk out, and a couple of young lads, they were just looked transfixed on asking me a question. Look, sorry to interrupt, but do you mind if we ask you a question? Shyly, timidly. I'm like, oh, I don't mind. Look, I hope we don't offend you by this. I'm like, okay, what are you going to ask? Are you really 46? And I'm like, that's the question? And they go to me, well, I don't know if you noticed, but when you said that, we all just were stunned and we started talking amongst ourselves. So that's where they became distracted. And I thought to myself, well, wow, I really didn't have to do that PowerPoint presentation to make an impact. I just had to walk in there as a 46-year-old person and go, ta-da! So anyway, I might have gotten a little off what your question was, but one thing does lead to the other. And again, I'm hoping, back to my model, if you reach a child that can remember, you'll have an adult that won't forget. Another hero of mine was JoJo Jackson. The YMCA, trying to rebuild my leg. And I tried to stay in there as long as I could. But when I went in, there was a man sitting there. And when I left, there was a man still working out. Until I got enough confidence, maybe 2-3 months in, to go, who is that? Oh, that's JoJo. JoJo. That's kind of a cool name. The nephew of Jimmy Jackson, if you're up in New Glasgow area. Jimmy Jackson, I won't even go into him, but he was everybody in New Glasgow knew him. But JoJo was, to me, a very determined person. And I said, well, it's JoJo Jackson. Well, yeah, he coaches boxing. I'm like, I'm gonna learn boxing, not necessarily for the fact of this, because I didn't like to hit people, I didn't like to hit, but just that I could train beside somebody that was that dedicated. But this is what I was going to say to wrap up all the heroes. Terry Fox, JoJo, Rick Hansen, all those heroes that I talked about. Previous to my walk across Canada, I realized to myself, Trevor, do you know who the greatest hero in your life is? And do you know who the greatest hero in my life is? It's me. I'm my greatest hero. And of all the movement that I want to do, I want people to move towards a mirror someday, look in that mirror and go, you know what? I'm my own greatest hero.
Really?
And even in those talks at schools, I'd ask those children, who's your hero? Who's your hero? Who's your hero? And I would say to them, those are great heroes, but I don't want those heroes to be your greatest hero. I want you to become your own greatest hero, because we all have a quality. This is the big be in because. Be yourself. Be all that you can be. You're important. Of all the elements that put together this planet, the elements that put together humanity, a part of it is you. You can make the world better. And when I go out and do that, and sometimes stepping 108,000 steps to be my greatest hero, wheel across Canada to be my greatest hero, to walk across Canada to be my greatest hero. At the age of 52, on my birthday next year, I'm heading across Canada to continue to be my own greatest hero, because this is the hero I expect of myself to put into this world. And I want people to really look at themselves. What can we do? And yeah, that's the core of the Fellow in Yellow, is to highlight the heroes we need to be. If it's in looking after our health, looking after the health of others,
Self-actualization?
I'm sorry?
Self-actualization?
Now that's a big word. Just be.
Okay.
That summarizes it. Yes. Yeah. Just be. Yeah.
So the next question is when did you come to Halifax, and why did you decide to choose this place to spread your message?
I think I think you probably already know the answer. Um, you know, this is where I was reached as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And walking across Canada, biking across Canada, after I run across Canada, I might go again. But to be certain, when it comes to do a run across Canada, where the dream shaped up, and the people that I knew here in Nova Scotia back then and even now that are putting me together, that's why. You know, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, like incredibly grateful, and it's such a motivating factor for me to do it and start it here. And there's people I do meet on the street that uh, they're going through some dark times,
Mm-hmm.
and I dedicate myself to try to, by the end of our conversation, to put a smile on their face, even a little. And sometimes I do that before they even talk to me. Dressed in yellow, a happy color,
Mm-hmm.
a bright color, uh, looking ridiculous going like this on the street.
I don't think you're ridiculous. You do what you got to do.
It's totally ridiculous. Come on. calling myself the fellow in yellow. Instantly, it's like, oh, this guy is too ridiculous to be true. But God, I gotta know. And they realize, no, there's something more deeper than the color of yellow to this guy. And there's a message in that. Whatever color you are, let it shine. Let it shine. If you're pink, if you're purple, if you're yellow, if you're even when you're blue, let it shine. Let it shine. Gray. You won't. There's black, white, yellow. What else we got? Turquoise.
Magenta, lavender.
Magenta. All those colors. It's nice when I do see those rainbow flags and I go, you know what? There's my color, that yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My next question is, so, as you know, 2020 was a difficult year for most people. Were you affected by the year at all, and what challenges did you see?
Look, it was such, for so many people, especially for me, it felt at times devastating. Because what do I want to do? I want to be out shaking hands, talking to people, face to face, one on one like this, hugging,
Yeah.
up close. And they're telling you, no, you got to stay 6 feet away from people. Points when you can't even visit your own family. And then there's points where you can only visit your family. Well, my family are all those people I met in 2019. That I shook hands with, that I had the conversation with. I had a guy talking to the other day that remembers me in 2019. He was homeless then. He has a place to live now.
That's
and he
awesome.
said, how much that moved him. And then all of a sudden, you're locking up the fellow in yellow. And potentially, I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know what this means for me. There was a point where I was laid off from my job, crushing, and you'd go out there and I'd do my thing. And then it'd be locked away, and I'd be running on the spot in here, in my apartment, trying to keep my steps up because I said I commit to 1 million steps per month.
Oh wow.
Over that 2-year period, 24 million steps I did in that time, and that would average between 33,000 steps a day, depending on the month.
Were the streets like kind of like, I know sometimes you're outside by the library, you're outside Peter Pit. Were the streets like kind of empty for that during COVID?
I remember one morning when I was, just there wasn't anybody on the street. They allow you can go out for walks, but stay away from people.
Mm-hmm.
But a stranded street. I want to reach people. That's what I came to Nova Scotia to do, is to reach as many people as I possibly can. They're telling me I can't do it. And then and the longer I wait, the more cost it comes to me, in my reserves, in my resources. But I did try my best. And when they allowed me out, I followed the rules and did as much as I could. Sometimes at a distance or closer when they allowed it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, 2021 became hard. We were by the end of 2021, really hard for me because and I mean I'll hold it together. But
It's okay, man.
in November, I lost my mother to a stroke, and
I'm sorry.
for 6 months I just didn't do any fellow in yellow, and I'm like, it's just that when I talk about bent and folded, bent and folded, bent and folded, bent and folded, that's what COVID was for me, just continuously. Even a point where you need a steady increase, plateau increase of exercise, and I even my knees started to go out of whack too. So I'm like, this what they said was going to happen is happening. Resign. And for 6 months that was it, and then something sparked again. I'm like, no, fellow yellow, he's coming back out. And 2022, I went out and I did a run. I ran from Dartmouth to Brigadoon Village and back. What was it, I think it was 300 kilometers round trip. The last day on my run was 48 kilometers over this 10-day period. And I'm like, you know what? You're still roadworthy. Let's get this going. And so towards the end of 2022, I'm like, we're doing this. Let's go at it. And through the winter, through the spring to now, I'm ready. I'm going to do this run across Canada. Less a world war. It's going to happen.
Oh man, I remember for me 2020 was crazy because I was working retail, and then people were just going like out of whack, and I seen the craziness in people, so that I was like, I had enough of this. Went back to school, so on and so forth. Now I'm doing a few things.
Yeah. What doesn't don't say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Unfortunately, it killed a lot of people. And it made a lot of people sick. I got what I call COVID lung.
Long COVID?
Yeah. I was vaccinated. I think I was vaccinated again, but I think at the start of I think it was the start of 2022. Towards, I think it was December, right around the holiday time. My brother had it, and I somehow probably caught it from him or from somebody else. And for the first couple of weeks of January, oh yeah, it hit me pretty bad. Again, as I said, probably with the lung issues I had in the past. But strangely, my lungs developed a different kind of phlegm.
Really?
And it feels like you'll hit at the back of the throat here, and it feels like somebody went down with a paintbrush, and it sticks. And I think what it's doing is trying to, when anything agitates it like that, or it thinks there's a virus, it produces this to catch it, to not allow it in. So I think the body adapted in some strange way that way. But hey.
Painting the lungs by numbers.
Well, yeah, the number is, don't let a virus like that in again. We don't like it.
No.
Yeah.
And the last question is, going forward, what are your goals and what would you like to achieve? What would you like to achieve?
Goals to me are different than objectives.
Okay.
And the first goal really is to try to reach as many people from Halifax as I possibly can. I really do. To tell my story, as well listen to their stories. I will carry this with me across Canada, which is the next goal. Go across Canada, reach as many people there as I possibly can. And I'm working hard towards that. As you will see out on the street,
Mm-hmm.
you would think over the time I've been out there that everybody in Halifax would see me by now, but it simply isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
I continuously meet daily new people, and that's a great thing. What's your favorite place across Canada? I always say to them where I'm standing right now, because look how far I've come to meet you. Of course, this is my favorite place. And so my goal is to run across Canada. Now, if I reach enough people here and they get excited, and I reach enough people in Newfoundland, the rest of the Maritimes, Quebec, Ontario,
Mm-hmm.
all the way across Canada to Vancouver, and I'm on Vancouver Island, and I hear them cheering. That goal of going across Canada, my next goal is going to be to run back.
Oh, wow.
I'll say that, because I do want to reach as many people as possible, and that I've talked to people down near London, Ontario.
Ooh.
I'd like to go far as south as Windsor. It'd be amazing to run past Niagara Falls as that per backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
A more near goal is when I run at Halifax, I got to run quick and far, because there's a solar eclipse coming right through us. The solar eclipse will knock out 94% of the sun for Halifax. In Newfoundland, where I want to reach, 100%.
Will it affect your running?
Well, I'm running. For 4 minutes, around 4 o'clock in Newfoundland, the sky will turn to dusk. So that'll be neat. And so I think really, when it comes to that run, when I head out there, that's my first real goal. Get yourself to Newfoundland as quick as you can, because you want to place yourself under that eclipse. That's a schedule I can't change. The sun, the moon, the stars, they don't make schedules. We do.
Okay.
So, my objective, and I think I've already talked about it as I move across Canada, my objective really is to reach as many people as I possibly can and bring them health, mobility, and recovery, and help them to move through life, to give them a quality of life that we all deserve.
That's amazing.
Yeah. If that sounds good.
No, that's amazing, Trevor. I would like to thank you for joining me for this first episode of Halichats. I'm going to start making more episodes when I get the time right now, because work is busy and all that stuff, and everything's back and forth. I really thank you for helping me get this idea off the ground, because I took this idea of hey, let's do something, and I'm actually going to make it a reality. And you said it yourself, you can be your own hero.
And you're setting those goals, setting those objectives. Goal number 1 accomplished for you. And with that, part of my goal you helped with in reaching more and more people. Your next goal, episode 2. My next goal, let's talk to more and more and more people.
All right.
I'll do that tomorrow. I think I have another interview lined up for tomorrow. So,
all right, my man. Ladies and gentlemen, Trevor Redmond, the fellow in yellow. This is Jamal Toussaint from Halichats. Have a good night, everybody. Oh,
and remember, the more we move others. And if you do, as he talked about the website, thereandbackcanada.ca, and you can dig into it yourself. And please contact me.
Indeed.
Indubitably.
Take care, my man.
All right, cheers. Thank you.